For the longest time, I was intimidated by my pressure cooker. I had these visions that it would just explode on me. So it took me a while to actually start using it. But when I did start using it, I started very basic. I started on the steam setting and worked my way up into more advanced recipes. And that's what I'm gonna do in this video. I'm gonna help you if you still have some trepidation about using your pressure cooker. We're gonna start simple and work our way up because this is the best appliance to use this summer when you are busy and also you don't want to heat up your kitchen. This is the appliance perfect for that. So I'm going to show you those. Let's go ahead and get started.
The pressure cooker I am using is a Pampered Chef quick cooker, and I like it because of its preset options. A lot of the newer models and Instapots have these preset options, and they just make the cooking process easier. One of the very first things I made in my pressure cooker was the cauliflower mashed potatoes. This has now become one of our weekly staples. We love it. It's low carb and so easy and delicious. So we'll have 2 bags of frozen cauliflower, or you can use 1 head of fresh. We put that right into the steamer basket of the pressure cooker. And then I have some chicken broth, 1 cup. I just pour that on top. A few garlic cloves, 2 to 3, or you can also use minced garlic. We do that as well from the jar. And then that is it. You just put the cover on and make sure it is completely sealed. And I'm going to put it on the steam setting, which is 15 minutes. While that is steaming, I'm going to add some grated Parmesan cheese as well as some shredded mozzarella cheese to a bowl. And you can use any cheese for this. We usually use the Parmesan cheese all the time, but any cheese will work. And then we're going to add about 1/2 cup of Greek yogurt. You can also use sour cream. So then we will add our steamed cauliflower, which only took the 15 minutes. I usually let it naturally release, or you can release the pressure, whichever you like to do. Since it's going to be mashed, it can go ahead and just release naturally. You can walk away from it. Mash that all up. I just use my fork or a spoon. And once you have the consistency you like, it is ready to serve. We use this whenever we would use mashed potatoes. We absolutely love it. We make it weekly because my husband loves to serve it with a fried egg for breakfast in the morning. And any other time we like it as a base. It is just so rich and delicious. So that's your way to ease into your pressure cooker, the steam setting. And you can end up with a fabulous side dish just like this. This next recipe is my go-to way to make ribs, and it is also the thing that helps me get over the fear of using my pressure cooker. And what I do is I have a cup of beef broth, and I have my slab of ribs, and I'm going to sprinkle them with Cavender's. That's our favorite seasoning. And I cut them in half so they fit. And what I did was put them on a rack. So they're elevated so they're not actually in the beef broth. So they're just up enough. And that's all you have to do. Just season your pork, put them in there so they fit, and you're going to put it on the pork setting. It cooks for about 35 to 40 minutes, and this is what you end up with. They are perfectly tender, juicy, so good. I take them out of that pressure cooker. I might sprinkle them with a little more seasoning, and I'll just add some barbecue sauce on top, and I'll spread that out, and then I'll put this under the broiler for just a few minutes so it gets a nice char, good caramelization. Or I will put it in the air fryer. That also have done before, just so much easier. I don't have to put the whole oven on, and I just put it in my air fryer for a few minutes and it gets nice and crispy. It is so good. I think this is the easiest way to make ribs. I have found it makes it so quick to get dinner on the table. This next recipe, I'm going to take it up a level, and we're going to be using the sear setting along with our pressure cook setting for pork. We are going to make pulled pork, which is going to be so fabulous to have for picnics or anything you have going on this summer. All right, I start with a full roast here, a boneless pork shoulder butt roast. And you can use any kind of roast. This is about 4.5 pounds. The first thing I'm going to do is cut my pork into 4 equal portions. This is going to make it much easier for searing in my quick cooker. And then I am ready to sprinkle on the seasonings. I have here in a bowl 1 tablespoon each of minced onion, chili powder, garlic powder, paprika, ground mustard, and I have a 1/2 teaspoon of cayenne pepper and some salt and pepper. I'm going to just spread that evenly all over these 4 portions. I put my pressure cooker on the sear setting. I added about 1 tablespoon of olive oil to the bottom, let that get really hot, and then I could only do 2 at a time because it was so big, and made sure that I seared the meat on both sides, getting it nice and caramelized.
My pork has been seared. I've taken it out of the pot, and now I'm going to add to the pot chicken broth and the Worcestershire and liquid smoke. With my wooden spoon, I am scraping the bottom to get all those little bits, those brown bits off of there. That's going to be the flavor that's going to add to this and also prevent any scorching or sticking. So I added a little bit of chicken broth just to be able to do this step, and I'm going to add the rest of my chicken broth. Okay, so 1.5 cups of chicken broth in total. Before we add our meat back, we want to add our Worcestershire and liquid smoke mixture. I did add a little more. It was 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire and liquid smoke was a teaspoon, but I increased it just a little bit because our meat is just a little bit, almost 5 pounds over. So I wanted to add just a little more. So that's all there. I'm just stirring this with my meat. Okay, gonna add our meat pieces in here now. All right, our pork is all in there with all the liquid, and now we're gonna put this on high pressure for 25 minutes. Let's make sure our seal is closed. 25 minutes, it called for 20, but since it's a little bit more meat, 25, so let's go ahead and get it started. And it will naturally release when the pin automatically drops on its own. That's when we'll be done.
The pressure has now been released. It is safe to open. I take everything out and now I'm using my shredders to shred all of the pork into pieces. And I served this at a party, so it was great. I actually put everything with all the juices and the sauce into a slow cooker just to keep warm. The cooking was already done. I just thought it was easier for transport. It was easier for serving from. And so I also served these with a cheddar cornbread waffles to go with the pork. And I will leave that recipe below if you're interested. It turned out so good. The cheddar and the combination of flavors with the pork was fantastic.
So we're making these Mocha braised short ribs. I have these fabulous beef ribs. And this recipe actually is calling to braise them, but I'm not going to braise them because I don't want to take 2.5 hours for dinner to be made. That's why our pressure cookers, our Instapots, and this Pampered Chef pressure cooker is so great because it has that sear setting, so we're going to get that flavor, but we're also going to be able to pressure cook it and reduce the time for cooking. So no braising this time. We're just going to let it do its thing in the pressure cooker. All right, so let's get it out of the package and into that hot oil so we can get a nice browning on there and a great color where all that flavor comes from. What I also like about searing in this pressure cooker is it's so deep that that oil stays down there and you don't get as much splattering. Like when you do it on the stove, you get that splattering all over your stove. So it's nice that it's all contained. While my meat is browning, I am chopping up some chipotle peppers that are in adobo sauce. I got them finely minced, and then I'm going to add some of that sauce when it's time.
I remove my beef from the pot and I put it on a separate platter. Now we're ready to make the sauce.
I'm gonna add my chipotle peppers,
which I'm adding to the pot that already has 1 teaspoon of the remaining drippings from the meat and then 1 onion that's been diced.
And I'm adding 3 tablespoons of the chipotle sauce, 3 tablespoons of brown sugar, 3 tablespoons of flour, a teaspoon of cumin, and we're gonna cook and stir that for 2 minutes. Get all that flour with the oils and the sauce. I've dissolved 2.5 tablespoons of instant coffee into my 2 cups of water here. I'm going to add that now. Oh yeah. And I'm gonna scrape the bottom. I'm adding 3 Roma tomatoes that I've diced, or you could use 1 can of diced tomatoes. And I'll add 1 cup of beef stock. Stir that and get that back up to a simmer.
Once it's back up to a simmer, I'll add the meat back into the pot with the sauce.
So we're gonna put it actually on the beef setting, but I'm gonna move the timer down since our beef has already been seared. Let's do 25 minutes. We're gonna put the lid on. I like that it tells me that the lid's on there. Let's hit start. And what it's gonna do is build that pressure, and that button will pop up telling us don't open it. It's up to pressure, and we'll have some really tender beef and a great meal in 25 minutes. All right, our timer is up. It is showing 1 minute because it's now went to the warming setting, but our pressure is still up there. So we're gonna release it though. Okay, that's all I have to do to release that pressure. And you just want to wait for that indicator to drop. And that tells you there's no more pressure in there, and then it's safe to open. It's released. Let's open it up. And that looks so good. Oh yeah, look at that. The last thing we have to add for the sauce is this chocolate. This is 90%. I'm gonna add, this is about half of the package left. So I'm gonna crumble it up and just drop it in there and get it all melted. So I have these pieces. I'm just gonna drop that in there.
The melted chocolate added such a nice thickness and a richness. I pour it all over those beef ribs, and now I'm gonna squeeze on some fresh lime juice. That's gonna give it a nice brightness and give it such well balance. And for a little garnish, I'm gonna add some chopped cilantro just on top. This turned out so delicious. I loved the sauce. It is chocolatey and delicious and robust.
You know what would go great with this? The cauliflower mashed potatoes. But look at that. This sauce is so rich with the chocolate, the chipotle.
It is tender and delicious, and this meal was made in half the time thanks to our pressure cooker. I really appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed these recipes and getting to be more comfortable with your pressure cooker. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next video.